Welcome back to the Jennuine Life podcast, where I and other genuine souls gather each week to encourage, inspire, and share stories in hopes that you will live your best, most genuine life unapologetically. Thank you for being here and vibing out with me. Now grab a drink, a pen, and something to take some notes, and let's start the show. Hello, beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of positivity and good vibes. I hope that you've been well, taking care of yourself, keeping all those haters at bay while prioritizing your health. And, well, I guess, cat's out the bag. You are here because you just saw my social media post where I announced some pretty cool news, very exciting news. You are not dreaming, y'all. Google done let me back in the doors. But this time, your girl is a full-time employee, okay? And this is really big because if you've been on my kind of like career journey, I was a full-time employee with Adecco, left and became a contractor with Google. Then I was a full-time employee with Amazon, and then I was a contractor at Instacart. And now I am full-time at one of the coolest companies, dare I say it, in the world. And I'm there. I am there. So yeah, that's my big news. And I am just so excited. Want to be sharing this news with you. But of course, after almost a month and a half long process, I can finally share. I started my job today, and it's an absolute dream come true. And now, while I'm extremely proud of this accomplishment, of course, I want to share that this episode is in no way to boast. Although, okay, I'm extremely proud of this accomplishment. I am not apologizing for my excitement and my, being proud of this moment. I'm not apologizing for that. And if you feel some kind of way about this post, I dare you to check yourself, okay? Because real people who know me, you should be celebrating with me, okay? Because we celebrate each other's wins on this show. We're not haters over here, okay? But of course, you also know me very well. I can find a lesson in everything, okay? And this is no exception. So go ahead and grab your notebook and a pen. I gave you some time earlier in the intro, but I have some lessons that I definitely learned in my journey to getting to Google that I definitely want to share with many of you. And I think some of you may know a little bit of my story and a lot of you may not. So I think this is really good for people who are looking for work. I know that we're in a really weird time right now with COVID. It's also a really cool story for people who don't have degrees. I'm not degreed. I went to college, went to several colleges actually, and just really couldn't find my way. And then kind of stumbled into recruiting, literally stumbled into it. And we'll kind of get into it here a little later in the podcast. But yeah, I want to share those stories and those lessons with you on this episode and kind of share this celebratory moment with you as well and kind of dive in. So let's kind of get into it. I hope you're ready because this might be a little bit of a longer episode for me. I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, but I feel like this might be an entertaining one too. So let's jump into it. Okay. So my story actually starts in 2015 with Google. Yes, you heard me right. 2015, 6 years ago. When I first interviewed with Google, a recruiter had reached out to me on LinkedIn to engage me in the process, and I made it all the way to an on-site interview. And it was the first time that I had ever been flown somewhere to interview. And I remember after the interview process, called my mom afterwards, convinced, okay, that no company would ever spend that kind of money flying me out, hotel, rental, my meals, and then decline me. So I remember telling her, I was like, there's no way they would decline me after spending all of this money. I mean, even if I did bad, they would have to take me, and then they could fix whatever was wrong, right? Wrong. Needless to say, I was declined. I was definitely devastated. And by now, brace yourself because I'm about to get real cliche on you here, okay? That rejection set me up for redirection. And little did I know it was a big redirection, okay? See, this is where things get really interesting. Not long after that, I received a call from Adecco. And I had worked there before. But they were asking me if I would consider coming back. And I had only been with this new company for 11 months, but Adecco's offer was one that I couldn't refuse. And basically, they were telling me that I could name my price and I would only be working with one client, which was something that I had been longing for. And in fact, that was the reason I was receiving the call. I was actually being requested to manage their new accounts project. And this account was Uber. And at this point, I would now have a tech company on my resume. So up until this point, I had never had tech on my resume. I had only worked with agencies, Adecco, Higher Dynamics. So a lot of my staffing was centered around administrative, clerical, call centers, warehouses, never in the tech field. So having Uber on my resume at this point was taking me to another level. And I obviously took the offer, and I knew that it was going to usher me into a new world. So I spent about a year working the mess out of that Uber assignment. I had the opportunity to travel. I worked very closely with the stakeholders with Uber Exchange Leasing. I don't know if you remember that program. It wasn't around very long, but it was a really cool program that Uber had where drivers could actually rent cars if they didn't have one. They could go into a location and actually lease a vehicle and become an Uber driver in the same day. And so I was over that program in finding basically people to work out of these locations. So mechanics, the front desk people, and people also like the salespeople that worked in these locations. So I pretty much managed a small team of recruiters. I worked as somewhat of an account manager / lead recruiter, so it was really cool to have on my resume. And it was about almost a year after my on-site interview with Google that I received a LinkedIn message. Okay. Almost a year to the day of that on-site interview. And the message stated that the world's largest search engine company was looking for a technical sourcer, and I looked like I would be a great fit. And so I already knew that it was going to be Google, and this was a contract role. So I immediately did not want to put myself through the embarrassment of failing that interview again. So I politely declined the offer to interview. But thank God this recruiter ignored me, and she just politely asked me why. Like, why not even just try? And so I told her what happened, that I had interviewed with this company before, made it all the way on site, and did not get through. And that's when she informed me that this was a completely different interview process. And boy, was she right. I completed the interviews and was extended the offer to join the Google team in Austin. And within 3 weeks, I had quit my full-time job at Adecco. And needless to say, they were not happy, by the way, but that's a whole nother story. I sold whatever I could. I packed what I could fit in that little Fiat. Y'all remember Fiat Tina, my little silver Fiat? I love that car. And I drove to Austin, and I started my assignment with Google. It was scheduled to last for a year, and after my year ended, it was extended for another year. And I ended up spending about a year and 10 months at Google, and it was the most amazing time I had ever had with any job to this day. And never had I experienced working at a company like that before, with people who were so smart and so passionate. And this is no shade to any place I've ever worked, right? Like, everyone I've ever worked with, they're smart, they're passionate, they're funny. Many of them are still friends with me to this day. So I just want to be very clear about that. I'm specifically talking about my time at Google. They were just, I can't even explain the relationships that I had there. They were just unlike any that I've ever had before, I had been challenged in ways that I hadn't before. And it was just a unique experience that I had there. And I cried like a baby on my last day. If anybody was there, I think a few people that I had shared that it was going to be my last day, they were witnesses to it. It was quite embarrassing, actually, how hard I was crying, but that's how bad it was. I was just all over the place. But I had secured a full-time position with Amazon, and I was off to Seattle which was, the next leg of my recruiting career. And so I think it was about a month after I had left Google that I was off to Seattle. And so Amazon was, Amazon, and I'll leave that there. I won't dare speak poorly about Amazon. It didn't work for me. I met some incredible people there as well. Again, people that I still call and talk to, people that I plan trips with to this day that I absolutely love dearly. But Amazon, the establishment, just wasn't the best place for me. And I don't know if you guys know this, but I left Amazon without a plan. I left in July, had no clue what I was going to do. And this is also in the middle of a pandemic. Totally not the smartest thing to do, but I did it. And it is what it is. Won't do that again, but I did it. And it was stressful, right? I don't know if you guys know this, or if you've experienced it, but anyone who was unemployed during the peak of the pandemic, unemployment was backed up for weeks. I think it took close to 4 or 5 months for mine to clear. And I'm sure you can imagine things got really, really tough, very tough during that time. But I was also determined to be linked with a company that I was very passionate about. It was extremely important to me to be with a company that was handling COVID very well. I also was paying very close attention to how the companies were handling the social unrest in our country. At that time, we had just experienced, we were really coming off the tail end of, really not the tail end, but the peak of what happened to George Floyd. And so it was just extremely important to me to see how companies were responding to that. So I had been applying to Twitter because I really liked the way they were responding. At the time, Calendly, I thought, was doing a fantastic job. And, I was just kind of taking my time and kind of watching how companies were responding. And I ended up at Instacart. It was a contract position. It was scheduled to last for 6 months, which I was completely fine with. And I took it for a couple of reasons. Number one, and I'm sure you're probably thinking girl, how do you go from a full-time job back to a 6-month contract? Let me explain. I had several reasons. Number one, it was a non-tech role. So coming off the heels of Amazon, where I was solely focused on software engineers, I did want to break from tech. I kind of wanted to get back into just the non-tech roles. It's totally different. If you are a recruiter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just a different kind of vibe. The people are different. Your language is a little bit different. And I kind of missed that. And so I was specifically looking for a non-tech role. And Instacart offered that. I was also very aware that due to the pandemic, Instacart was growing rapidly. And so I knew that there was going to be plenty of work to do. And I also knew that there was going to be an opportunity for career growth. So while the contract was scheduled to last for 6 months, I knew that if I did a really, really good job, there was potential for growth for me. And so it was a strategic move for me and totally paid off. I cannot begin to tell you the amount of learnings that I acquired at Instacart. They are things that I will take with me for the rest of my life. I am a brand new recruiter because of the things that I learned at Instacart. Absolutely incredible time there. However, one night while I was up browsing the LinkedIn classifieds, as I like to call them, I just happened to see that Google posted a job rec for a recruiter right here in Atlanta. Now, please understand, when I applied, I honestly did not think anything would come of it. And I don't know if you've ever done that before. You just kind of throw noodles at the wall and you really don't put too much effort into it. And I don't want to say effort, but just I applied, but I didn't want to get my hopes up too high, right? I had already applied back in 2015, didn't make it. I had made it as a contractor, but I didn't convert while I was there. And so I really believe this was a case of imposter syndrome where I just didn't think I was good enough to kind of get through as a full-time employee without the boost of, someone who kind of helping me get in, or I just didn't think I was getting on my own. So I just kind of applied and put it out there, but I didn't have my hopes too high. And that's just being completely transparent with you. But a month and a half later, here I stand, a full-time employee with Google. And it is just an absolutely incredible feeling for so many reasons. I am so proud of myself. And I have quite a few lessons here, 5 to be exact, that I want to kind of tie into what I just shared with you and that I hope helps you, or something that, just something that you could take away from what I'm sharing with you. Okay. All right, here we go. Here are my lessons. Number 1, everything happens when it's supposed to. One of the components of the Google process is having Googlers provide a reference for you. Having 3 to 5 is super helpful. And back in 2015, I didn't know anybody at all. Fast forward to 2021, I had 6 and still had Googlers who had offered to be a reference that I didn't even get a chance to tap into. Not only that, but I needed the experience at Google as a contractor because as I interviewed, I already knew what it was like to work there. So it helped tremendously when I was answering questions and kind of understanding how Googlers work. I worked there already. I needed the experience at Amazon. Working in a fast-paced, high-volume environment and working with software engineers. That was the first time I had ever staffed for software engineers. Incredible time. And I needed the experience at Instacart. I had never, up until this moment, had worked with somewhat of a startup. Instacart is not a startup company, but they have a lot of elements that make them feel like a startup. And there's a lot of ambiguity there that definitely added to my strengths as a recruiter that I know helped during my interview process. And so all of this coming together definitely helped aid in where I am today. And so when you think about it, it didn't make sense back in 2015. Yes, I was devastated. I cried for almost 3 days because I was just like, oh my God, like this hurts. It hurts. And I know it hurts because sometimes when we have our hearts set on something that we want really, really bad and it doesn't come through when we want it to, you have to rest in the fact that it's going to come. If it's meant to be, it's going to come when it's supposed to. And you just have to keep pushing forward. You have to just keep putting one step in front of the other and keep going. My next lesson is, if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again, if you really want it. The first time I interviewed for the full-time role at Google, I walked into that interview convinced that I had known everything about recruiting. I just knew I would get by with what I knew. Okay? No, hell to the no. Okay? Please take it from me. This time around, your girl was up prepping every night until almost 2 o'clock in the morning even. Practicing interview questions. I was writing out all of my career accomplishments. I just knew that if I was going to do this thing right, I had to do it better than I did before. If you really want something, put in the work. Don't rely on what you think you know, or how cute you think you are, or how fantastic people tell you that you are. Put in the work. Become an expert. I know how to recruit. I knew that, but it wasn't enough. I know that Google only wants the best of the best. So I became better than what I knew. I made sure my thoughts were cohesive and that I could confidently express myself as well as understand how I could bring my whole self to those interviews, because that was important to me too. I didn't want to go into my interviews being someone that I wasn't. I wanted Google to understand that they were getting someone pretty cool, right? But I was smart. I'm really, really smart, and I'm really good at what I do. And I wanted them to see that, and that I was fun. And I wanted to be able to incorporate that in my interview responses. So I had to practice, and that I did. Number 3, follow your gut. Everyone is not meant to understand why you do what you do. People thought I was nuts. When I left a full-time job that I was great at, it was smooth, was getting along well with everybody, to pack up and move to Austin for a contract job. They thought I was even crazier when I said I was headed to Seattle, where I knew not a single soul. I don't even have family over there. If you pray about it and you have a peace, then do it. You have to remember everything works out for your good. So if you listen to my story, every single moment assisted in getting me here today. It all makes sense now. It didn't before, but it makes sense now. And that's what makes it so much better. It all makes sense. It all makes sense. So you just have to go for it. Now, if you're being met with a ton of resistance and things are like fighting you and you're trying to fit a circle in a square hole, I would encourage you to start to think twice about what you're trying to fight. But for the most part, if it's moving real smooth, go for it. You have nothing to lose. You never know. Oh, this is number 4. Just so you know, for my people who are taking notes. You never know who is placed in your life to assist you towards your goals. Be careful how you treat others. Now, I talk about this all the time on the show. And this is not a kiss ass comment. Okay, I want to be very clear about that. I'm not telling you to go around being like all of people's, cheeks, trying to be like phony. That's not what we're about. What I'm telling you is to treat people with respect and be nice to people that come into your life. You never know the role that they're going to play. There were so many people, seen and unseen, known and unknown, that were cheering me on during this process, praying for me and being willing to speak for me in rooms I wasn't even present in. It doesn't get any better than that. It doesn't. I was brought to my knees when I found out a part of this story that I'm going to choose to keep to myself because it's just so beautiful. But please understand that there are people placed in your life that are going to help you along the way. But if you're walking around thinking you're going to do this thing by yourself and you're treating people like crap and you're using folks and discarding them because you think they're no good to you, you're in for a real rude awakening. Be nice. Treat people with respect. It's really simple because you know what? You never know who you're going to need in the long run. And honestly, it's always those folks that are just jerks that realize it when it's too late. That's my number 4. Number 5. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. So this one kind of has a few points to it. And you heard me mention earlier that I kind of stumbled into recruiting, and most recruiters stumble into it. Nobody really wakes up like, oh, I want to be a recruiter. Very rarely. But I say stay ready so you don't have to get ready, because I was actually laid off back in 2013 and I could not find a job at all. And so I, got my resume together and I had shared it with a friend of mine. And I said, just pass it out, get it out to as many people as you can. I'm available for work. And she did that. She did just that. And my resume landed on the desk of someone at her job who knew someone that worked at a deco, who was an account manager, who passed my resume to a recruiter. And that recruiter in turn called me and asked me if I would be okay working a contract position with GE. And I said, yeah, whatever, I'll do it. And it was supposed to last a year. I think I was on the assignment for like 4 months because the team that she sent out there, we just did really good. So it actually ended earlier. And I'll never forget, the manager called that recruiter. Her name is LaShare. And he told her, hey, I really like Jennifer. You need to find that girl a job. And not long after that, LaShare held her word and she called me. And their receptionist had actually quit in the office, the branch office. And she called me and she said, hey, do you mind coming in and answering some phones? And I said, no, not at all. So I came in, started answering phones and helping the recruiters out. And not long after that, a recruiter was proposed to. She called into work on a Monday and she says she's never coming back. And, the branch is like, oh my gosh, we need another recruiter. We need another recruiter. And I always give her credit, and I'm going to say it right here on the show. LaShare spoke my name, and she said, what about Jennifer? She's been answering phones, but she's always so helpful. She's always helping me, and I could teach her how to recruit. And at first, they said, no, we'll find somebody else. And LaShare fought for me. And it is to all, I'm telling you, I give her credit to this day. She is the reason why I became a recruiter, because they said, fine, she's your problem though. You train her and get her going. And that's how I became a recruiter. Seriously. And it led to opportunities with Cirque du Soleil, Uber, Google, Amazon, just incredible opportunities. And so this falls under my final. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. If you want another job, get your resume in order. Stop complaining. Start applying. Start networking. But continue to be excellent where you are. You never know who's watching. And I promise you, this world is really, really small, especially this tech world. So get yourself in order, but continue to be excellent in what you do. The fastest way to manifest something you want is to operate in a spirit of gratitude. I also want to remind you that what is meant for you will always find you. 6 years later, the company that I couldn't get my mind off of, I have found my way back to. In the city that I said I would never move to. I told you guys, I forgot what episode it was. I told you I was never coming back to Atlanta. And then I shocked myself when I said, gosh, I couldn't shake Atlanta for some reason. I had to come back. And here I am, back in Atlanta. Life is funny. Please take it from me and never say never. Never say never. That's my Google story, y'all. I hope it helps. I hope those lessons help you in some kind of way. I'm thinking about actually offering resume and interview services. If that's something that you're interested in, let me know. I'm happy to help. That would include reviewing your resume, helping you with your LinkedIn profile, and helping you prepare for interviews. If that is something you're interested in, please let me know. You can email me directly at jennifer@jennuinelife.com or send me a DM on Facebook or Instagram. But make sure you just let me know that you're tuned in and excited as well. You know I love hearing from you. And let's make sure we're staying connected. Sign up for my newsletter, of course. You can sign up for our text and Facebook family. Follow me on IG. And also don't forget to leave a review, share, like, and subscribe so that we can keep spreading those positive vibes out there in the world. And until next time, beautiful souls, cherish your peace, meditate, journal, and remember, you're amazing. And don't forget to Google me. No, I'm kidding. I'll see you back here next Monday. Have a great week.